There is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on the trail of the Nephilim. The Genesis 6 narrative states that the Nephilim are on the earth in those days and also afterwards. If that's true, can we find evidence that corroborates this? I'm L.A. Marzulli. Join me as we go on the trail of the Nephilim. Today we're going to go back in history to around 1911 to a place in Wisconsin called Lake Delavan. I've talked about this before, but it's been years, and I don't think I've ever really done a report on it here on the trail of the Nephilim. So we'll get into that, but first a word from our trusted sponsor. Drug makers have paid a popular DNA ancestry app millions to access consumer DNA. For the price tag of a whopping $20 million, a pharmaceutical company will gain access to a vast collection of consumer DNA information. Folks, this is why tens of thousands use Virtual Shield 1 to protect their data. Virtual Shield 1 is an all-in-one security suite with an industry-leading VPN, the ability to help erase your online data from data mining sites, and identify protection that includes up to a whopping $1 million identity theft insurance policy. Now is the best time ever to get Virtual Shield 1 because every new sign-up gets a 60-day risk-free trial plus several other free bonuses. Get a free trial today by going to Virtual Shield /LA and the number 1. Once again, www.virtualshield/LA and the number 1. So on the trail of a Nephilim, this is an article. And let me give you the backstory. I heard about this years ago. So in 1911, the Phillips brothers they had a hotel right on Lake Delavan. The hotel still exists. Of course, it's been added on and added on. And they noticed that there were mounds on the property. So the Phillips brothers began to do what I would call a primitive archaeological dig. They're not trained archaeologists, I get that. And so they probably missed a lot of artifacts, but they're not a bunch of Elmer Fudds either. They knew what they were looking at, in my opinion. I traced this thing down. I went to Lake Delavan. I spent time in the archives in Madison, Wisconsin, and I found one of the handwritten letters. Of course, it's a photo, microfilm of the actual letter from the Phillips brothers. And it's going back and forth with the archaeologists that's stationed in Madison. And the Phillips brothers are saying, look, these are not human beings or something else. They have elongated skulls. Let's get into this. Examination of skull tends to strengthen Darwin theory of evolution. Okay, so, they're couching it, the author of this particular article that was in the Wisconsin paper, probably in Madison, or even the New York Times, because some of this found its way into the New York Times. So he's couching it in the Darwinian paradigm, which of course we don't believe in, but I digress. The discovery of several peculiar skeletons of human beings while excavating a mound at Lake Delavan this week may furnish evidence to substantiate the Darwin theory that man is the descendant of a monkey, or prove that a heretofore unknown race of men once inhabited southern Wisconsin. Let me just stop right there and weigh in on this really quickly. When this article was penned on May 3rd, 1911, 1912, they didn't know about DNA, okay? No one knew about DNA till Watson and Crick discover it. And what they find is a very complex coding system. So this is the problem. It's like that coding system, the DNA, is in me, is in you, and I'm going to reproduce a human being, not a monkey or a Neanderthal. It's not going to happen. And so the Bible tells us that everything reproduces according to its kind. So when this article was penned way back in 1911, they had no knowledge of DNA or even what it was, because it hadn't been discovered yet. So the author of the article is obviously prejudiced in some way because he's promulgating the Darwinian theory. So let's continue. Information of the characteristics of this race was brought to Madison, Wisconsin today by attorney Maurice Morrissey of Delavan. Lake Delavan is where the hotel still exists today. And Lake Delavan is the place where the mounds were, where the Phillips brothers dug into the mounds. Curator of the museum, Charles E. Brown of the State Historical Museum, will make an investigation of the discoveries within a few days. Upon opening one large mound at Lake Lawn Farm last fall, 18 skeletons were discovered by the Phillips brothers. Little attention was given to the bones, and the elements soon turned the skeletons into a friable mass. In other words, they began to just evaporate. Now, they were in a sealed tomb, which in itself is just incredible. Well, let's continue. When another mound was opened a few days ago, however, the excavators were struck by the peculiar facial characteristics. The heads, presumably those of the men, are very much larger than any race which inhabit America today. From directly over the eye sockets, the head slopes straight back and the nasal bones protrude far above the cheekbones. The jawbones are so long and pointed that in looking at the inanimate frame, one is struck with its minute resemblance to the head of a monkey. This is where they're taking all this and tying it into the Darwinian paradigm. So these are shots of Lake Delavan. I was there years ago, probably around 2013, 2014, sometime. It's a beautiful place. The hotel's incredible, but it's basically built on what I would call a burial ground, and I don't believe it's Native American. You can see right here in the foreground, basically the middle of the picture, there is a mound that's there. Some of these mounds have never been excavated. There's another one of the mounds. So the entire hotel is built on what I would call a burial ground. Now, this is a true story, and I don't think I've ever told this publicly, although I may have at a conference way back in 2014. So it was 10 years ago. So I was at the hotel, and a friend of mine, Jeff Gregg, was also there. In fact, Jeff served as my sort of guide. He picked me up at the airport in Madison, and I spent time in the archives, about 3 days at the archives in Madison, Wisconsin, poring over all these handwritten letters, which you'll see in a little bit. And so Jeff now and I are staying at the hotel, different rooms. I don't want, I stopped sharing rooms with people when I turned 30. I'm just not doing that, except, of course, the wifey. So here's the deal. I'm laying in bed, and as I'm in that area, that window, and you guys know what I'm talking about, where I'm just starting to drift off into sleep, all of a sudden, this Native American comes screaming at me, and I instantly woke up. I mean, it was unbelievable, just like roaring at me. And I sat up in bed and began to pray against it. So it's very interesting. I also found out that the actual hotel, the new wing where we were staying, is built on one of the mounds. So they couldn't excavate the mound. They couldn't destroy the mound. They had to build the hotel around the mound. And we went down into the bowels of the hotel. Sure enough, there's the mound. So just saying, there was some supernatural stuff that happened while we were there. So there were some artifacts that were discovered in and around the property. Most of these, to me, look very Native American. There's nothing anomalous about any of them, in my opinion. But what is interesting is that when I was talking to the curator, or not the curator, the manager of the hotel, he said that a lot of the artifacts went missing. So the hotel was closed down and then reopened again for whatever reason. And when it reopened again, they discovered that many of the artifacts were missing. So these are the handwritten letters from the Phillips brothers, and let's read them. Pardon, this is from, dear sir, from Charles E. Brown, Madison, Wisconsin. Dear sir, pardon delay in answering your recent find and closed questions answered. Will say have done nothing in the mound since not even filled in the trench, as it's our intention to further investigate. I enclose also sketch of the stone that may possibly be a spirit stone. It is better than the sketch and stands square and solid on the base. It's a freak of nature. No hand work. I intend to have this with some of the skulls and bones placed around some on a stand to photograph it. The write-ups you have probably seen in various papers are not, I can't make out this word. We are trying to keep things quiet, but they butted in everywhere, and we just filled in a little dirt in the pit and started another trench. So it's, and pardon me because I've read it several times and the handwriting is very difficult to read. But here's the bottom line. There's another paper, another part of a letter where Charles Phillips actually, one of the Phillips brothers, takes and actually draws what he's seeing in these recently excavated tombs. So it's incredible. He said that there were 9-footers. Just to show you how amazing this story gets, according to locals that were there, and we spent like 3 days in the archives, there were 40 boxes of material from the town historian after he passed away. We went through every single box. We found nothing about this event, which was sometimes that's what happens, but we did the due diligence. We were there, we went through every single box. We looked for newspaper articles, handwritten letters, anything. So all we have are these Xeroxes, which are original from 1911. You can see it right there on both of the facsimiles. Up in the right-hand corner, you can see it's 1910, and then he's taken ink and gone and made it 11. So we know that this is the real deal. So Phillips drew this picture of a skeleton. We also know, according to the historians and locals, that Phillips kept one of the skeletons in the basement. Now this is where the story goes off the rails. Phillips hung himself in that house. Just saying. So these objects, if they are indeed Nephilim, are highly charged, in my opinion. And I've experienced this not a lot of times, but more than several times. And you'll pick up an object and all of a sudden there's something coming at you. So these were charged objects. What's interesting is the skeleton goes to the local college near Lake Delavan, all right? And I tracked that down. And of course, it's exactly like Raiders of the Lost Ark when the ark is crated up and then it's in some sort of a warehouse and it goes down the aisle, makes a left turn, you never see it again. Well, no one knew anything about the skeleton. There was no paperwork, there was nothing, but that was what we were told. So it's hard to get really to the bottom of all this and try to find out what really happened. The bottom line is this, that the naysayers are always saying that there's nothing to see, there's nothing here, there's no giants, there's no giant skeletons, they're all 6 feet or 5'6", not so fast. In our work on Catalina Island, we discovered a 9-footer, and we show that in my book, On the Trail of a Nephilim. So I'm not making this stuff up. In fact, just to prove a point, I haven't done this in a while, I will take it and give you guys and show it to you. There's the original picture right there. There's the picture that I discovered. Let me make it nice and even. And you can see the giant in below Ralph Glidden. And we had that analyzed by several different people. And of course, what's really amazing is when the museum comes in and and plays with the picture. So let me see if I have that here. I thought I did, but maybe I don't. Give me a second. Hold on, John Adam. Yes, here we go. So when Richard Shaw and I went back to the museum, this is what we saw. Let me try to get this in a way that you can see it. There it is. What's missing? Well, they cropped the giant out of the picture. And I'll show you one more picture here. There's Richard Shaw holding my book, and we show the actual picture, and they cropped the giant out of the picture. Now, I've talked about this numerous times, but why would they do this? You know, what's the point of doing this? So I'll just end by saying this, that there is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, and that's why I am on the trail of the Nephilim. Thanks so much for watching.